everybody, and welcome to the Sound of Inbound. Today, I have another one of my favorite people in the world. Her name is Rebekkah Schaubach. She is a owner of many projects for a very famous hospital to the stars. I'm not allowed to say the name. Out of Los Angeles, Rebekkah Schaubach is here today to talk to us about how brands could become much more magnetic and, let's say, sticky, and let's say effective, and let's say more connected to community and all the good things. So today I'd like to welcome Rebekkah Schaubach. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Love having you. We're talking coast to coast again. Yesterday we were with Mike Schaubach. Today we're with Rebekkah Schaubach. It's
I
a
think I know
power
that
duo.
guy. I think I
Yep,
know that
we
guy.
do know that guy. It's a power duo of creativity and brand. And so today we're going to talk about a lot of good things around how to make a brand really stand out, especially in a super crowded market, or changing perceptions for people and how they get connected to a brand in some interesting ways. And you've had a lot of experience in dealing that with the LA community for the last couple of years. I think most recently you were art directing uh, how many thousands of projects for the
Yes. Yep.
hospitals out there.
Absolutely.
Um, and you've had a chance to expand that brand into sports and different kind of community events and all sorts of communications during the pandemic, and just countless and countless numbers of activities and opportunities, working with doctors, working with the community, working with influencers to get the brand out there in the best ways possible. Does that sound about right?
That is a great, excellent summary. And I don't think people even put two and two together when you think, what's the value of marketing communications at a healthcare organization, a healthcare system inside of a hospital. And then when you start thinking about that broad outreach, it's not just about what you can communicate to patients and visitors, but in the case of the place that I worked, we were nonprofit status, so that community outreach and support was wildly significant to the work that we did. And it really helped to diversify the work that we were doing too. It's not just about, recovering from surgery, but letting different groups know that we have access to healthcare for them. We're in their communities, we're in their neighborhoods, we translate to their languages, and we can support them and meet them wherever they're at.
Brand can really expand the entire customer experience, patient experience, in all sorts of interesting ways. And you guys did projects of every single sort. And because we have a tiny little connection to something really important, you can even get off planet and up into outer
Yes,
space,
this is
which is
true.
something maybe we could talk about. So I thought maybe to get started today, I could start a fun question. Just I'm going to do this with everyone. What universe would you like to live in? You ready to play?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, here we go. So, Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Oh, Star Wars, hands down, easy peasy.
Okay, Star Wars or Toy Story?
Toy Story.
Toy Story. Oh, okay, now
Absolutely.
we're
It's
getting
my
interesting.
favorite
Okay.
Pixar film, so,
Okay,
I have to go Toy Story all day long. Yep.
Toy Story or Barbie? Which universe would you really wanna live
Okay,
in?
so Barbie
The toys are
crosses
talking?
over into Toy Story. I
Yes.
think around Toy Story 2, definitely Toy Story 3, so I'm still sticking with Toy Story.
Kinda like the metaverse that Barbie lives in too, but okay, alright,
I
we're gonna
do,
keep.
but, full disclosure, I am such an avid fan of animation, always have been, and I always will be. I think in my 80s, I'll probably still watch reruns of Futurama. So I have to stay true to my brand, which is animation and Toy Story.
Okay, I love that. Alright, we're gonna get a little harder now. Toy Story or Star Trek?
I knew you were gonna throw that one in there. I was just gonna say the only thing that could throw me off is Star Trek. It would have to specifically be The Next Generation. You didn't defy that in your question, so I'll still stick with Toy Story.
Alright, so let's get into some of the questions around marketing. I think there's a lot of things that you've learned working in a very large brand, trying to stay within those confines of that brand. How difficult was it to be creative in that environment?
At times, really difficult. Obviously, we could be put in a box because the clientele that we're serving could be medical professionals, could be physicians, could be chairs where they feel like they clearly understand what's needed from a marketing perspective. Why would we ever conceive doing, you know, putting the messaging out there in some other different way that is too wildly creative, too um, abstract? And so it could be limiting. That being said, working with them to figure out how to flip the script a little bit is where I felt like was one of my strong suits or my team's strong suits because we're going to come at it with a completely different perspective, right? We're not medical professionals. So, we have those blinders on a little bit and we can say, have you thought about it this way? Have you thought about it that way? And the outcome could then be something that you would have never conceived, taking something that would have been on paper and turning it into an animated video, which again, I know we had collaborated on in the past as well. It's a totally different form to get the same information in a patient's hands, but it's more interactive, it's more experiential. It could be on their phone, it could be on a TV in a patient room. It's not as static as something that maybe would have otherwise just been written up on a one sheet, let's say. So that was a way, again, budget permitting, could be a way to solve that kind of creativity stalemate, right? So we thought about it a different way and could output it a different way than was expected. There are other cases, though, too, I'll just add that maybe it doesn't actually need all of that. And maybe the least path of resistance is the way to go if you really just need to convey something very cut and dry, very clear. But, you know,
So to connect it back to your the universe that you were saying that you would live on if you could, there has to be a way to you said it a moment ago, to kinda, like, spin the script and change it up, and living within the confines of a brand of any sort, if it's a franchise like Star Trek or where you were working, you still have to find ways to connect with that community, and you had to work within that, and that was pretty difficult, though, I'm assuming, right?
absolutely.
But you do still, even though in that environment, you were still challenged to switch it up, try to find new things each year, try to find, campaigns that could connect with the community in different ways, just like Star Trek does.
Yes.
And they've had to flip that script for how many decades now? I don't even know. It just goes back to, like, the '60s or '70s,
Yeah,
1960s or '70s, I
absolutely.
believe.
Mhm.
That show's actually getting really, really old, I
It
just
is.
realized. But that's
From a brand perspective, it is. It's a long-standing brand.
yeah, and you've had to deal with the same thing. You've had to deal with a really long-standing brand that as the environment around you changes, you have to change with it, and you have to be allowing for that. Does that
Right.
sound real? Yeah.
Definitely, and a lot of that, leads back to that factor again of trust. So, why are you marketing to me now when you didn't market to me 10 years ago? What's changed? And then our job would be in that case, we've evolved, right? So, it was, we shouldn't have ignored such and such community 10 years ago. We didn't know how to get into your community. We now have the tools to give you that outreach and do it in an authentic way. We've hired, let's say, physicians that represent that community that know how to speak to you, that know that your unique healthcare needs, can communicate with you more directly, more effectively. Um, and again, with that trust then comes the confidence that, okay, now I do want to bring, I do want to be a patient of yours, for example. I do want to commit to your brand. I do want to check you out versus where I was before. I believe I can get a better level of care. Again, uniquely speaking to healthcare in that space.
My key takeaway from all this is just that brands must evolve. Even if they've been around for decades, you're not it's something you cannot just be stoic and just hold tight to one perspective. If you don't evolve with the community around you, you're really missing a huge opportunity.
Absolutely. Totally
Okay.
agree. Yep.
Okay. What does a really strong brand look like and mean to you? Like, what is it doing to be successful in your head? Like, what's the one thing that it's doing so well that you're like, that makes it very successful?
It's sort of like a scary big brothery way. I would probably say like multi-channel marketing, right? So if
Sometimes
it's
omni-channel marketing, they call it. Yeah.
omni-channel marketing, if it's successfully hitting you across everything that you're doing. You got the email, there's an advertisement on a web page that you're on, you're seeing the commercial on TV, you drove by the billboard, and they're kind of pinging you to get you to buy in, meaning it's now kind of in your subconscious and you're thinking about that brand without even knowing you're thinking about it. And now you're engaging with it. And then maybe you converted and you bought something, if that was the means to the end. They hooked you somehow because either they've a little bit of shoved their brand down your throats, but they've done it in a way where you didn't feel like you were being attacked, but rather it was happening organically, it was happening around you, you know? So obviously on all the social channels, That's getting really smart, really innovative, really sneaky. You don't even realize half the time when you're being advertised to. But again, if there's something that's getting you to think about them more and getting you to engage, they're successful. And I think obviously retail space does that generally pretty well, but I think there are some other disruptors out there too that are infiltrating,
Different spaces that
different
we hang
spaces
out in. Yeah.
exactly, and getting you
So
to engage in different ways. But I do think that omni-channel, the word that you use, term that you use, definitely helps. Not just getting one way of receiving that marketing and that advertising, but hitting a bunch of different variety.
another lesson to be learned here is just there's a spray and pray methodology for advertising that can work, but it's an old school methodology. We just when there wasn't the internet around, you could just drive down the road and see a lot of ads on a billboard or on the side of a building, or you would see it in the paper and things of that nature. And nowadays, I think there's a lot more respect, of course. And the reason of this podcast name is inbound marketing. And I'm just curious, as far as like the outbound marketing side, we get it. That's the push, push, push. But what kind of things would you say inside of a very well established brand that you still needed to do to build trust, to get that inbound marketing to work for you guys?
I would say the frequency, I think, has a big factor, right? So, how many touches are coming my way without me feeling like I want to get out of this and I want to unsubscribe versus there's enough in a headline to draw me in to click and open that email. It's reminding me of whatever, you know, let's say it's a product, the product is, but not multiple times a day, maybe not even multiple times a week. So I think that frequency of just enough to keep you interested, just enough to tease out, a message without it feeling like, it's overbearing. Obviously, publications technically should do that pretty well when you think of all the big publications out there in the world now. I mean, there's so many, but the ones that I'm gonna click on the most are the ones that, again, aren't gonna be too overbearing, but have understand enough of, I guess, the things that I'm already reading to tease out those types of things to me just a little bit more and that are keeping me interested and engaged.
I'm probably going to say this a billion times on this little pod, but it's right place, right time, right content. That's what inbound marketing is all about. And it's the old school PR, this new school, finding ways to come up with opportunities to connect with the audience and something they want to hear about. They don't see it as spam. They want to engage with it and they want to come back to you. And I think a lot of the things that you guys have engaged us with and the things that we worked on was about trying to find a way to connect to the community more in a meaningful way, and then getting them to want to stick around and want to participate and you guys as valuable in ways beyond just the patient room. I think that was a big message that you guys were trying to leave, that you guys do care.
Well, and it's about authenticity then too, right? Because you're doing it in a way that feels like, it's unexpected, but also helpful, and it's meant to engage, and it's meant to, speak to a variety of audiences. And everybody learns and digests content and information in different ways. And in this digital age that we're in, and with the immediacy of social media and all of that, it really just seems like that kind of content, like video content, let's say specifically, feels that it's getting a lot more universal and a really easy way to get people hooked.
What are your thoughts right now on the use of, because you're in the design role, so I'm curious about like what's your thoughts on the effectiveness of print?
I maintain print isn't dead, of course, because you go outside on the street, anywhere you go, it's gonna be all around. I think it's getting the balance between, from a marketing perspective, how you're reaching your audience digitally, but are there still touch points to follow up with print? So if you are an app, right? Let's say like Hims or Hers, right? So they've really disrupted the healthcare space. They're making a lot of things accessible to you and it's right on your phone and it's immediate. Your initial interaction with a product like that, right, is app based. They marketed to you. You saw a TV ad, you saw an Instagram ad. You're now hooked. You're going to engage. But at some point in time, you also are procuring, in their case, a physical product that's going to come in the mail with covered in printed branding. So there still is that other hand that needs to function. They've got to come together in peace and harmony, the digital side and the print side. Um, it's just that your touch point now, is gonna might be digital first, right? 20 years ago, your touch point, let's say Hims was existing, apps really couldn't handle something like that, but maybe they were a website. But the first time you saw Hims likely would have been in a magazine, a printed magazine that you opened, and that's how you learned about them.
There's a lot more, I would say, effort these days to go into what can print do to enhance the customer experience when the person is interacting with it. So even if you're just buying a piece of technology, they try to make the reveal really experiential. And that's probably a playbook that's been, kind of stolen from a couple of very top brands, including Apple.
I was just gonna say, the iPhone experience, I mean, if you think about engaging with an iPhone when it was on the heel, as it was coming out, I think we're nearly at that 20-year anniversary as well, versus, let's say you were buying into still BlackBerry, Samsung, something else back in the day. That iPhone box and what they put into the box and how it lifts off, even down to, like, the care they put into your headphones and how they're packaged inside of the box, how everything neatly fits, that's the print element. So, again, if you f we keep going back to the flipping the script, whereas before you would have first been advertised to in print, now you're first getting advertised to digitally, but likely the means to the end is gonna come to you printed. So, the touch of the paper and that packaging, the quality of the packaging, is it something you even wanna keep around? I can't tell you how many iPhone boxes probably exist in my house right now for all the amount of times that I was like, "I should keep the box," right? Why do I need to keep the box? I literally don't need to keep the box. It's got the serial number, but the serial number is online. But, there's something tangible about it. It feels good. It looks nice sitting on the table. So yeah, it's just not dead in that way. Now maybe it's just dead up front or losing traction up front as we used to rely on it. But it still holds a place and very near and dear to my heart, and I will never give up on print.
I was going to say something else about print. I'm just gonna grab this real quick. So one other thing that print can do, that digital can't do, is it can persist, and it doesn't take up any energy after it's been created. So if you do go invest in print, for all those people that are listening out there that do still love print, I'm with you. I think Rebecca's with you. That it's not just about packaging on other technologies. If you do actually create a form of art, or if you're coming up with a communication or something that's kind of useful for your desk, as I was going to show you here, something our group produces every year, which is these little fun calendars, which each year our design team puts together all this custom art. We put together some story behind it and try to have some way to have some fun with these things and experiment. It persists on the desks all year. So it's not intruding, but at the same time, it is persisting. So when you do glance over, you have this brand impact. And if you guys haven't heard this before, I think there's the that you get like 5,000 imprints a day of different brands, and people are like, no way. But if you actually start glancing around your own office right now or wherever you are, every time you look at your computer, you're getting the brand of that business in front of you. And if if they have a partnership with a chip maker, you're probably getting that sticker too. So there's a lot of things that people don't even realize print can do that digital is not actually figured out yet, thankfully.
Well, and to your point of something like a desktop calendar, and obviously using the inventive calendar as an example, it can still give back to you in a digital way. You have a QR code on that printed desk calendar that's going to tie you back to your business and or other things that you can be doing for your customer base. Then you've taken that product and re-engaged your customers digitally a second time. So again, that now that printed piece maybe isn't so static, and it puts you back online. And so it can work for you in two ways. Digital cannot necessarily do that on its own.
Switch over to the inbound side of things again and talk about personas that digital can do really, really well. And that's to personalize the experience. So, when you have had a chance to work on larger campaigns, how have you found yourself planning for that persona strategy that you need to put together in order to make sure that you're connecting with the audience at the right time, right place, right content?
Well, I think that the customer journey aspect is key in that planning. So, what's that initial touch point? How are we tailoring it to that group? And then where do we want them to go with it from there? So, how are we driving them? And what is the outcome that we're looking for at the end of the day? Is it just building awareness? Is it because we really, really want to say, we're now offering this new innovative type of surgery, a whole team was hired. They need patients in the door, right? So, how are we going to get those patients to come in and believe that we can do the thing that they're looking for, or advertise to their doctors in a B2B way, right? That type of persona where we want to say to those doctors, refer your patients to us, and we will give you that type of care.
You had a lot of different stakeholders involved, and there were probably a different type of persona in each in each different type of initiative. So with patients, you can't even write above a certain grade level, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So, sixth grade is the grade level medium, grade level standard, even down to the point size of a font to maintain for readability. When you think about healthcare in general, and I don't think this is even necessarily like a Los Angeles issue per se, it would probably be at any major city, but the demographic in most healthcare systems is likely going to be at this stage of life 65 and up. That's the largest group that needs the most amount of care and ongoing care. You've reached a stage in your life where more healthcare issues have built up and you need to see somebody more consistently. That more 20 to 40 age group, and especially with men, likely don't think they ever need to go to the doctor. It's really hard to get them in the door. That's a whole other persona, right? A whole other group to target to say, actually, now is the time you should start seeing a healthcare provider consistently so that you don't let something go unchecked.
You can't broadcast one message to an audience. You just can't, because the people that are receiving it are of all walks of life. You don't know what their mentality is at that moment. So one thing that digital solutions can do is if you meet them at the right channel at the right time, it can be personalized. They won't see it as garbage. It has to be personalized. You can't just do what I said earlier of just spray and pray. That's what advertising does a lot. It just sprays and prays, hopes that people are going to get caught in the mix. When you're dealing with really critical communications, especially from a hospital, the stakeholders in one camp are going to be patients and their families. In another camp, it's the doctors are trying to recruit and keep them in their job. Don't quit. Don't leave me. Please never leave me. Then you have donors that are going to be giving money, and you have them at every walks, every stage of life, and then it just keeps going. And you have
Residents,
governments,
fellows.
and
Yep.
yeah. And so in each of those groups, the way that I like to see it break down is that you have an influencer, and you have a decision maker, and even those audiences get a different type of sensibility when they're interacting with the brand. And I'm sure that you had to deal with that at each of the levels of the different stakeholders you were working with. So it's like in one day you have the donors and another day you have the patients. And it's like, wow, two different worlds I have to deal with. And I think what I want everybody to hear is appreciate what the hospital systems have to go through in order to connect with you. I mean, do you agree?
Yes, absolutely, and I'm circling back now on where I was trying to go before when you brought up, you know, reformatting the content for a certain audience, but also keeping in mind that accessibility. So we were going down that path of talking about the grade level, the reading grade level, font size, etc. And when you are speaking to that patient demographic, getting them to understand what you're trying to convey and making it sound like you're really talking to them pointedly, without using too many big words, too much jargon, right, is definitely the most, least path of resistance, but the best way to go. But in talking to those other audiences, physician audience, you even mentioned that donor audience, that believability that we're leading with, let's say, research and science and the bigger words and the flashier words that hook them because then it means we know what we're actually talking about. We know our stuff. That makes that whole difference. So that tone that you're choosing to nail the persona that you're trying to nail and get in the door absolutely plays a huge, huge role. I just wanted to end with that tidbit because it was making me think about that. That there are those limitations, like we were saying, to get the baseline audience, but it's really not what every audience needs. It's really what you need to do to market to that audience specifically in that moment with that campaign. And sounding smart and sounding technical and like you know your business is what a lot of the organizations do. And you'll see if you search them all up, everybody's using the same terminology and the same phrasing and buzzwords, groundbreaking, again, scientific, tend to light people up. But I think that, as a whole, they need to widen that net of the type of terminology they're using to get people in the door.
Yeah, every brand touch point is important. each person that's a part of an organization is another brand touch point too. So even the person you meet at the front desk of an ER versus the administrator that helps with the finance side or whatever else you're going to be interacting, especially with the hospital system. Every one of those touch points are important, and we've
That's
all
a
had
whole
our
other persona, that's a whole
whole
other
other
group when you're speaking internally to your staff
yeah,
and
yeah.
marketing to your staff at any type of organization, even all the big brands, all the big tech companies, what they do internally and what they do externally, this is 2 totally different groups. So engaging everyone, to stick it out internally is totally different than getting more people to come through the door to use your service.
I'm not trying to do clickbait here, but I think the big thing would be when you're going to start working on your marketing strategy, you gotta write down the words, "One size does not fit all." You can put a brand strategy together that needs to represent an organization, but it's not just the logo, it has to be personalized at each of these different places that people are gonna interact, and I think training has to happen both internally and externally in order for people to, let's say, live that brand as well as they can and represent. We have a lot of good things around here that we like to try to exude upon our audience and our clients about being transparent and being responsible and accountable and all these great things. And if that's something that's part of your brand, you can't just say that's marketing's effort. It has to be everybody's effort from marketing to sales to operations and beyond. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about AI. Who would have thought? Nobody's talking about this year, but we are here at the Sound of Inbound. Okay, we're back. We're back with Rebecca. And during the break, we were talking a little bit about where design has been going, especially around the topic of logos, but in context with AI. So, for all those out there that are getting super pumped about all the AI tools, I am too. I am too, and I have been playing with them. But we were just talking about brands in general and the value of catering to an audience that's changing because our audience now includes AI. So the thing I was going to bring up, Rebecca, was when we design websites now, we are being a lot more sensitive to the idea that this information needs to be referenced by our friends on the AI side. And that's important because there's quite a few things that are going on in AI where people are not going to use the generic search anymore or the standard searches that are out there. They're just going to use AI to get their answer. And those results aren't always visual. Meanwhile, when a person does go to a website, we still want to cater to the human of the world, the humans of the world, and their visual. So, there's an experiential component to this. There's the value of a brand and what does that mean for the logo and the look and the feel. And then there's the content. So, give me your take, kind of like where things are going and how you're dealing with it.
Totally freaking out about it, of course, but also trying to educate myself on it better. When you were talking about speaking to the AI audience and how the outcome isn't as visual, recently I was actually trying to leverage AI in a variety of search terms, information that I needed to put together. And I was actually surprised on the mix that it gave me of its answers and then direct links to where it was drawing content from that would then take you to the source. I didn't think we were retaining that part. I thought AI was essentially just taking over, spewing out information to you. People are taking that at face value and then running with it, which is very scary and undoes, you know, uh, the meat and potatoes behind whatever that topic is. Like, is that even real or is the information you're giving me real? So the fact that it gave me links to sources and then I could go to the source and then actually read the source, ideally written by a real person or a group of people, and then learn the thing I was trying to learn, sort of warmed my heart, made me feel a little bit less scared, which was great. So from a content perspective, that was surprising to me.
All right, let's hold there for a second on the content side. So you're making me think of something. When you do a search, do you use AI to search for things and do a
Yes,
lot of
yeah, and
research
that's
now?
that's I was literally diving into that for the first time in earnest this week instead of a haphazard way because I actually needed it. I full disclosure, needed it to help me put together the program for my son's bar mitzvah coming up, and I needed a lot of religious related content. I needed to know where it came from and I needed to understand what it was that I was pulling together. And I was really surprised that it both could give me a summary and lead me to all the real stuff that I actually needed.
Well, here's my question though. So when we think about leveraging AI to get an answer to something, Do you feel like it's still doing the job that marketers do or storytellers do in crafting a compelling argument or crafting a compelling reason for that to you to engage in that brand? Or does it feel kind of black and white to you when you're getting the information back on a business or anything else? Does it feel more like an entry on a business listing or does it feel like it's crafted like a storyteller might do it?
I think that because it's taking away the human element, I trust it more in sort of like a data crunching perspective of if I'm gonna feed it demographics about a group, let's say, whether that's age or gender or something else, and asking it to give me outcomes of how I would talk to that group, that's one really great analytical way to look at, how we could approach marketing or that campaign. But it's taking out the human element, so it's taking out somebody's interpersonal, knowledge or relationship with a group, and then you're not getting that perspective anymore, you're just getting a computer's perspective on it, so
So it took this podcast cameras and my friends behind the scenes back here for me to realize that that's what AI is missing. You want to know what AI is missing? It's missing the story. We've been trying to talk around what's the problem, what's the solution, da, 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 but that is it. If you want to know why you should work with your marketing agency right now, it's because they're the ones that are going to craft the best, more compelling stories. When people do engage with your brand, it's going to feel more human. Oh, wow. What a revelation. However, AI is wonderful for distilling what you do need to know about a business. So if you want to understand why to trust them, if you want to understand about that business, where they're from, where they're going, things like that, even look up their financials, I found out recently, you can do that with AI and it does it really efficiently. You can always upload a lot of information and have it answer questions on on a brand. But when it comes to like having the AI convince a person to work with one over another, it's going to be much more black and white. That subtlety of knowing how the business is operating at the personal level or the human level, it's just not going to be conveyed, at least in my mind, through the AI.
yeah, I mean, have it distill trends, right? Like, have it do the work for you that's tedious so that you can spend the time doing the interpersonal stuff. You can do the time learning more about your group and more about your audience. And what the machine is doing for you in the background is crunching everything else and putting it together for you and spitting out that report that you need so that you can see, what could those outcomes be? Is it positive? What are those numbers looking like? How many people are in that group? The things that obviously we still need to know how to do math and we still need to know how to put data sheets together, but let's save some time on that aspect and use AI to help us there, so that we can still keep the human element.
So I was thinking about the hospital situation for a moment that if a person researches a doctor, they're really still not getting even a fifth of what the real experience is to work with that doctor. They might get
Right.
some things that have been complained about or celebrated online, how many research papers they had or how many star ratings they get, all that garbage. It's garbage, total garbage.
It's total garbage.
Um,
Yeah.
but when you do meet them, that's like now you really can understand more. You're not going to get that understanding of what the interaction is going to feel like through AI. That's really I'm just realizing that is really, really missing in what the information it spits back out to you.
Right, but just like with anything else, it's, experience that's gonna get you further, right? So if you really wanted to dive into, um, a physician's bedside manner, you'll only know as much as other patients that have experienced that doctor and what reviews, hopefully, honest reviews that they've given back. Without that feedback, you're going at it blind, like you would even with interacting with any product, right? It's all about reading reviews and has somebody actually purchased this thing? Has somebody actually engaged with it? And what have they said about it? AI can't really meet us there yet if AI hasn't experienced it. But I wouldn't say that we're not going to be there in 10 years. There probably will be some iteration of AI having those types of experiences and giving its take on how it would interpret the experience itself. Because it's only going to get smarter and it's only going to learn more from us. We are constantly teaching it. We are constantly giving AI feedback, and it's taking all of that information and doing something with it.
You wanted to talk about logos, so
Yes, I did want to talk about logos.
give me your take on the
And I think
logos.
there's a crisscross here with
Okay.
AI in a way. I mentioned before print is not dead, but logos may be dead, or the trend of the weight that we did place on a logo or logo mark, um, I think is reaching an apex in its existence at the moment, or maybe a crossroads. But when you think about target marketing and let's say email marketing, um, am I experiencing that brand's presence and their logo when I'm clicking on it, or is it because the headline, the subject of that email is actually getting me to engage. Something is on sale, some event is happening, and now they've hooked me. It didn't really matter to me as much of, what little mark, what little element was paired with it. It's there was something written, there was something else that encouraged me to engage. Coupled with that, when you think about apps like Canva, and others that are now out there and accessible and on your phone, and Adobe has products like this too that make it very accessible to not have to buy into like the whole suite and have it on your desktop, but you can do it right in the palm of your hands. If you have a strong color and you pair it with a font, you now all of a sudden magically have a brand, which completely undoes my entire field, my entire career base of designers, artists, illustrators, everyone that's putting so much thought and creativity into what does this brand's visual elements look like and what defines them from a visual aspect. But again, talking back to like Hims and Hers, Chime, any of these other apps that are out there where it's really the first thing you're going to think of is just their word on some color, then is that all that brand is these days, creatively speaking?
Well, word marks have come back around. They
Big time,
weren't they
big
weren't
time word
around.
marks.
Yeah, but for in my mind, this is just my opinion. Um, for a long time, the symbol mark, to actually creating a symbol for a business was also really, really hot for a while, and then people wanted to get away with having a word. So again, famously Apple, they just removed the word Apple and they just put an apple because it is an
Exactly.
apple. So it's
Because
an
it
easy
is
thing
an
for
apple.
them to
Yep.
do. But I will say that the other problem with this trend over the last couple of decades of everybody gets a logo has been the staying power of the business. There have been so many ventures over the last couple of decades that have come and gone so quickly that the value of the logo has been, in my mind, diluted because there's just been so many businesses. So when a company can stick around, and I hope that you all do, then the logo becomes more valuable over time. We've attended shows before where I've looked out on a sea of booths, and I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds. I'm 700 booths. Could you imagine? And you don't even know where to start. But when you look across a large sea of organizations like that, the really strong brands that have stuck around, done a really great job of building a great brand, you recognize that as a landmark and it almost draws you in. Like inbound marketing should plug for inbound marketing. But the point, I guess, is it's like if it's done well, if it's executed well, even if it is just a word mark, it can be an effective tool for creating brand recognition and getting people to want to stay connected with you. And in certain cases, actually, I bring this up in another another one of our podcasts about polo. There's something about just seeing the symbol and getting a feeling about something. You see it and you immediately have this emotional reaction. And what I like to say to a lot of folks is that emotional reaction is the apogee of brand development. I mean, if you can get people to emotionally connect to something, you've hit the mark. Now, is it a good emotion or a bad emotion? I don't know. If I say liquid death, what do you say? What do you think in your head right now? Versus if I say Nike, and there's different things that are popping in your head from a person kind of looking like they're at a party, but they're just holding water, to a person who's just running down the street. So, brands can do a lot with a logo for sure. But I'm agreeing with you, Rebecca, that there has been a trend more recently to kind of take a shortcut and just having a word mark and calling it a day. And I would like to say to those that do that right now, take a second look. If this does scale out, how does it scale? Does it scale well? Or are you thinking, oh, if this actually does go big, it's going to kind of look kind of meh? And if that's the feeling you're getting, people will have that same feeling when they see it too. And they're just not going to want to celebrate it. So I think people should work on that logo.
Yes, creatives, artists, I mean, I think we do still have a place. We just have to figure out how to diversify what else we can offer. Because if your brand now revolves around the fact that you did invent a word mark paired with a color, to your point, what does that look like when you then do take that to a trade show or something broad that you're marketing out in the world and differentiates you? We just can't rely on that mark the way that we used to because there are now so many brands. We aren't just dealing with the few mega brands that we used to have. And of course, we're going to recognize a Target bullseye and we're going to recognize a Nike swoosh. There are so many more products out there in every single space that how will you differentiate yourself? One big study we had done. I've been through many different brand iterations, especially at my previous where I was previously working. And when we did a big brand logo study, we isolated color Let's take, 20, 30, 40 other organizations in our space and just look at their brand, look at their logos, look at their color. And we put it on a big color wheel. And you realize, let's say for something like healthcare, the amount of organizations that stay in something like a blue green trend versus who uses something like red, let's say, for example, you can just see that weighted difference of where people felt comfortable versus where they felt like they were now pushing the envelope. The same thing might happen in like banking and in retail, right? And so I think that, and even maybe with AI, you could use a study like that to look at trends and figure out, how could your business differentiate itself if it's really only going to lean on color and a word mark, let's say, for example, and you're not going to have that tangible logo, then what can the creative still bring to the table if they're not the one that's producing that mark, but helping you elevate what you can do with the more simplified aspects of your brand and still have it feel recognizable, still make it visible in that inbox, clickable on social media, clickable on an ad. That's going to have you stand apart.
One other thing that you mentioned that I think is a good tool for design teams, and we do it too here, is that you do your research on the market itself and competitors and other kind of tertiary businesses that work in that space. And you create a color wheel and you bring all their logos in and you map them to the color wheel. And then if you're working on a new brand, you try to see if there is a white space. You don't have to do this, like, it has to be this kind of weird brown or weird mauve. That's not the point. You're just trying to figure out, how am I going to stand out within this market? That's the overall goal. And I think there's a lot of value to doing the color wheel experiment. Actually, most of our clients have gone through this with us and they do enjoy that moment of like, oh, look at all those logos. And they're seeing where they might fit. And I think that's an important aspect of just doing your due diligence and making sure that you're trying to get your client to stand out in the best way possible. Okay, so Rebecca, you have had a lot of experience working for a major brand, a lot of experience working with other kinds of organizations over the years as well. What would you like to put out there for advice for folks that are trying to get in the design industry and trying to land that first job or maybe the second job and trying to look for the right fit organization and get to be in design and get to be in art direction like you've had to do?
I would say first and foremost, know your voice and what your strengths are, but definitely be open to learning and diversifying the capabilities that you bring to the table. So I might bill myself, for example, and as somebody who works heavily in print, but I really stretched myself to make sure that I understood all the digital aspects of digital design, being a digital designer, working in tools like Figma, compositing in Figma, not just staying static to something like Photoshop, and making sure that I was understanding my colleagues because you may take on one role or be targeting one type of role in marketing. Let's say you really just were a traditional graphic designer. You're looking for gigs in a marketing and communications department or at an agency, a brand agency. That's the way that I started. But when you get in, you may be coupled with a team of front end developers, UX designers, that you're gonna need to partner on, right? So everybody's working on the same campaign, looking for the same, successful outcome. There's gonna be a web element, there's gonna be an app element, there's gonna be something, out there in the field, marketing campaign that's gonna be on TV or on a billboard, and you all need to work hand in hand. Doing that at the ground level and making sure everybody has representation when you're kicking that off, I would say is the most valuable aspect of that. Teams working in silos and not communicating with each other, especially at a campaign level. The design team had this great idea. They worked with the advertising team to come up with a concept that absolutely does not translate to the web. It's not compliant. The colors aren't going to, colors aren't going to work on screen. It's not going to look great in an email in your inbox. You've now missed the boat on, collaboration and how successful that piece could be. So when people are coming at it new, fresh out of college or having a career change and they want to try something else, definitely know, like I said, know what you for sure can bring to the table and be 100% open to where you can grow and how you can collaborate with your teams and learn about what everybody else is doing too, so that you're not just stagnant in the one thing that you know how to do. You've got to get out of your comfort zone and you've got to flex to those other skills as well. And I 100% pride myself on the fact that I did have sort of an old school, very traditional graphic design upbringing in my college experience. My professors were, from Europe, and Gestalt principle was like their foundation. Their 1960s, 1970s is when they came up with all the big significant designers of the day, Milton Glaser, Saul Bass, everybody that was big, and I absolutely love that mid-century style of design in general, probably because they heavily influenced me. But certainly, like 4 or 5 years into my career, when I realized, like, if I just stay in this one path, I'm gonna be taken out by everybody else coming out behind me. I've got to stay relevant. I've got to stay flexible and keep working on all of my skills. I can still be super great and knowledgeable, let's say, again, about print. But if I don't know what it takes to design a website or to put out an email marketing campaign, how to advertise for digital, all the different aspect ratios that you need for ads on a web page, from the narrowest banner at the top of the page to something super vertical down the side, and how that translates the content, I'm losing out, to my competition. So again, for anybody new out there, be diverse, know your voice, but definitely be ready to learn and flex.
I completely agree. I'm going to add that if you want a checklist for when you're applying for a job as a person who hires people, I'm going to say, and this is gonna transition well. You'll understand in a second. But number one, you need to have a very nice looking resume.
100%.
Oh my God, so many tools out there. Make your resume look like it was done by a pro, especially if you're in the design space.
Yeah,
And mix it up. You're not too crazy, but make sure it's any length you want. There's no, like, limitation about it has to be 1 page. That is a complete faux pas. Number
absolutely.
2, cover letter.
I
Write to
won't
the
I
people.
wouldn't hire anybody that didn't write a cover letter. I wouldn't even get the resume sent to me. Just put them on a different pile.
Put them on a different pile, because that means that you actually took the time and you were interested in the job. It wasn't just like, again, spray and pray on getting your resume out there. A number, so say 3 and 4. 3, you want to make sure that you have some kind of digital presence. If that means a single page website, which you can get from a lot of companies out there. Squarespace is one, not a sponsor, but I'm listening if you want to call me. And there's other organizations too, including HubSpot, that will allow you to put together a really fast website page to represent your organization or yourself. And you need to do that. You got to put your work out there, even if it's just a digital resume. Just having that is really, really good. And you want to go one, like, here's my 3A and 3B, is set up a domain for yourself and connect an email to it. Because that looks so much slick. It's more slick than everything else that everybody else is putting out there. We are currently in the process of hiring folks, and every single person, I'm talking over 50 people, all had a Gmail address. Nobody had a personal domain. And I thought that was really, really interesting to kind of think about. These are marketers. Like, if they're not marketing themselves well, how are they going to do with our clients? So there's something you got to think about subliminally there. And then the last is, and this is the connection for Rebecca, she said you have to stay relevant, right? And one of the ways to stay relevant is to go to conferences. And Rebecca, where will you be soon where people could say hello and connect with you on the road?
I will be at the Inbound conference in San Francisco in September. I am super excited. It's the first time that I'm attending. AI is a huge theme of the conference this year. And aside from using it for networking, I am absolutely using it to just learn what's out there, what the marketing trends are. There are so many cool sessions that sort of, take different perspectives about not just marketing, but like, engaging with your community, content. There's a creative and brand track, and I signed up for a bunch of sessions underneath that umbrella as well. Again, that's completely out of my comfort zone. I normally would be looking for conferences like AIGA, How, the Adobe conference, things that are specifically tailored to creatives and artists. And that's not who I necessarily work with anymore these days. I work with operations people, heads of sales, heads of marketing, heads of communication. I need to know how to talk to them and answer their questions when they say, "We don't know how to set up an email campaign. What do we do, or where do we even start?" I better know how to answer that question because creatives need to be involved in that. Somebody has to build it, somebody has to design it, somebody has to include effective branding and write something super, super engaging. And so it takes the whole team to put that together. I might as well learn about it and put it on my resume that I can do those skills and have those skills. So very excited.
I'm excited for you, as a person who's been going for over a decade
Years and
now.
years, years. Yep.
It's definitely a unique experience to go to a show that's outside of your comfort zone and getting to meet people that you didn't realize are actually same-minded, and they can be a really great network to find different opportunities for anybody that's out there. So we're looking forward to seeing you at Inbound.
Absolutely.
Rebecca, this has been excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today on today's podcast,
Thank you
talking
so
about.
much for having me.
Yes, it's been lovely, and getting a chance to talk about brands in all sorts of different ways and shapes and forms. It's a lot of good lessons learned today. I hope you guys all found that to be useful. Um, if you want to again network with Rebecca, she'll be at Inbound and online. Rebecca, will you have a website soon?
I will have something by the time I'm at the conference, at least for points of contact.
Okay.
My work speaks for itself. I don't have to have a portfolio. Just come to LA and you'll see my presence literally everywhere. Still out there in the ether, on stadiums, on billboards, on sides of buildings. I have left quite a mark.
Thank you very much for joining us today for today's podcast at the Sound of Inbound. We look forward to having you all join us soon. Again, appreciate everybody being out there to listen to us about all the ways to make brands more sticky, more inbound like. And so, again, thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.